What's up, everyone? Today we're going to be looking at a replay of my Season 10 Week 1 game on TTS. For the Week 1, I was paired against LordAbadeer. He won Prio, he ended up choosing his extracts, so I got my secures. We were on Riot Sparks and Hammers. For the threat cost, I ended up choosing 18. The main reason was that I felt that, especially on that double D setup, at 18 threat, I can easily fit a 4 threat instead of going for just a 5 and a bunch of trees, which meant that I could bring Rhino. Here we can see that I'm choosing my board side, looking real quick at the different options. Never forget to do that when you're playing in a game. If you're playing in person normally, you're gonna be only have access. You're gonna be able to only have access to 2 of the 4 sides, but on TTS, all 4s can be used, and you should exploit that. Alright, so here, as I was mentioning, I'm gonna be choosing my team. At first, I'm looking at Sam because he's really good on those super spread out map. But I feel, and I want to have access to a setup with 2 safe extract plays, right, for my eyes on the prize. But I feel like I should probably bring Pyro instead, as Beast, especially against, I'm expecting, I don't know exactly if it's going to be X-Men or Weapon X, but he's got a lot of good physical attackers, so Beast's going to be great for tanking them. And Pyro is really strong against Sabretooth, as he really doesn't like being rooted, and this also makes him a bit more awkward. As for tactic cards, we're obviously bringing this as a robbery and pyrotechnics, eyes on the prize. At that point, this is where it gets tricky. At first, you'll see me over here like looking at fallback. It's a nice defensive card. I can really use it well against something like Weapon X. But I'm pretty scared of the collision damage that Sabretooth could bring in right in between the throw and his bounce. So Brace makes sense, and then Sacrifice is really great, especially with Rhino, as he really likes to be the sacrifice target for other people. Sorry about that. I've got a little bit of sickness, if you want. Alright, so here I am while my opponent is finishing making his choices. I'm making sure that I'm happy with everything, but I'm really confident that this team at 18 on this kind of scenario is really strong. I've got a lot of mobile models, I've got some decent control, and I've also got a fair bit of firepower if I need it in between Black Bolt and Crystal. So here the main thing I'm expecting is my opponent to go with X-Men. He didn't. He went with Weapon X, which I was not necessarily expecting. But to be fair, sometimes you just want to play something, so you just force it, even if something else might be better. He did bring Juggernaut, so he's got a really mobile piece in Juggernaut. Logan, X23, and Sabretooth are, above average mobility. I don't consider them to be super mobile models, but they're like decent in terms of mobility. They do need to land attacks or have power to be able to do their movement shenanigans, though. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Here we can see that my opponent is missing a tactic card. He tried to get the alternate art exceptional healing when he chose his roster, but it bugged out. I know for me it does the same thing with every alternate art card. If somebody has managed to use them without issues, I'm curious. Please leave a comment below. I'm really curious to see how, because for me, every time I click on the alternate art stuff, I get this issue. Who's gonna end up searching it out, and then we're gonna be able to get on our way with the game. All right, so here we've got my opponent has Prio. So what's going through my mind is basically whichever side he puts Sabretooth on is likely the side that I want to use Crystal and Pyro. How will I know which side that will be? It will be the side without Logan. And I'm assuming that Logan's going to deploy alone. I'm not sure he's going to put in the middle. Turns out it's going to be Juggernaut. He does get to pick up the hammer without moving, which is nice. But it does mean that his Juggernaut will not be able to do a nothing stops on the first round. Considering I don't know where anything else is going to be deployed yet, I just go with Black Bolt in the center, as he is the one that I plan on picking up my middle safe hammer with. Alright, so here we see that Sabretooth's going to be coming down on the left side of the board, well, my left side. Which means that I can now look at deploying Crystal and or Pyro, right? You see I'm looking at those mostly right now. Right across from him. The goal here is that in between those two models, I am pretty confident I can either slow him to make sure that he's not going to have as much of an impact, or if I want to go for the kill, I'm going to have access to Incinerate really easily. Both are also energy attackers, so they're pretty good at attacking Sabretooth. Right, as expected, Logan shows up on the opposite side of the board. With X23 being right besides Logan, it's pretty obvious that LordAbadeer is going to end up somewhere near X23. And as such, most of my opponent's forces are going to be concentrated on the same side, with Logan trying to be a big bully on the other side. So here you can see, now that I have the complete information, I can drop Pyro into the best spots possible for him to do the most work on round 1 and 2. So here my plan is pretty simple. I'm assuming my opponent will pick up oh yes, well, he chooses his leadership. It goes on Logan, which isn't super surprising. And for the dossier, he ends up using it with Sabretooth. As for the dossier, I think it's a tricky card. I don't know who's the best one to use it, honestly. I think it's really a case-by-case situation. Sabretooth really appreciates it to get his power economy going, right? If he can hit the person with it, with a builder once, it's going to be great for his power. But he does have a bit of a harder time chasing. So initially I considered dropping on Beast because he's completely opposite Sabretooth, but Beast has a tendency of wanting to get into the thick of the fight at some point, so I feel I'm probably better off putting it on my kind of tanky. I say kind of because Black Bolt only has 5 stamina on his LT side, but 4 defense dice and a reroll, potentially 6. Long range attacker, so should be safe. Alright, I do expect my opponent to pick up the hammer on the left side of the board right first. Wait, I'm not sure which one of those models, but one of those two I expect is going to be converging and picking up the hammer. The reasoning, I guess, from my opponent for this is that it's going to be a strong side, so might as well grab the extract on that side and let Logan bully the other side of the board. If it weren't for me having a safe extract play, this would be really problematic, as Logan is a monster in a 1-versus-1 situation, but we've got eyes on the price, so this should not be too much of an issue. Here I think my opponent makes the right choice of going with X23 because with the barrels that are over here, my opponent can easily get cover as they are size 2 against most of my range attacks that are coming in right at the back of the board from Crystal and Barrel. So unsurprisingly, we're going to go with Beast, use at the beginning of the turn the leadership to transfer my power. During its activation, first thing we do, eyes on the prize, pick up the hammer, and then move back to safety. Here I'm a bit lazy with my positioning. I should have positioned a bit better because we're just gonna pause for a second. I am not sure if I'm within one or not of this piece of terrain. Had I not been sloppy, I should have placed myself within one, as that would protect me potentially from Logan in the next round. I don't think it's the end of the world, but it's a bit sloppy. And it's the kind of stuff that I try to not do in terms of mistake, but you know, especially on TTS, I find it pretty annoying to measure that, those ones with terrain, so I have a tendency of not doing it. I definitely should though. Alright, so here, same concept, we're gonna use Crystal to give a power to Pyro. And now, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, honestly. I feel like I want to use Crystal, generate some power, start putting out some statuses, maybe on X23 or LordAbadeer. Give myself some options. Now the question is, do I just go for a safe poke on LordAbadeer, try to bait X23 out of that safe spot, right? As long as she's behind those barrels, I can't really plan on doing damage to her quite easily, right? I mean, I can always try, but it doesn't sound as great. So I'm mostly left wondering, should I go or not? I do realize that I have an interesting opportunity here. Crystal being a long mover, she can easily beam both of them. What's nice about this with the beam is it's going to be 2 power guaranteed for Crystal and my team. And if I get some incinerates off, it gives me some interesting pyrotechnics options. If not for this round necessarily, maybe the next round. So we start with X23. Don't expect to deal damage. She blocks 3 with cover. We've got 2 successes. Sadly, no wild. Then we're going to go into LordAbadeer. You will end up using a memory token to make her tank here. It's going to be 4 on 4. We do get the wild, so no matter what, I'm happy. He also blocks 2. We've got 3, so we deal the damage, which is neat, especially that right now, I still feel like if my opponent moves X23, I'm still in a winning position, as if he moves out of behind those barrels, I could get some interesting options for punishes. So my opponent then thinks about what to do. I think there's nothing super urgent for him to do at this point, right? Like, everything is kind of the same. Like, Sabertooth's gonna move roughly forward. Logan is going to move forward. I'm expecting him to go on the secure to get his victory point. Because it's kind of free, but at the same time, I personally wouldn't. As it kind of like leaves your Logan in a bad spot. But it seems like a default decision that's never entirely bad, as victory points do help you to win, right? So here we see Sabretooth go on the objective. And then my opponent chooses to EL LordAbadeer. That's an interesting decision. Is the cost worth it? I'm not certain, right? It does mean that all of his models are LT and fully healed, but Sabretooth will not have to power next round. So that means no spender. Alright, so here we're gonna go with the initial plan with Pyro of moving in to firewall someone. The question is who? So my initial intent is to go after X23. Sabretooth is a bit tempting, but I'm outside of range, and honestly, considering the fact that his Sabretooth has 0 power, I'd rather affect X23, as this way, if I trigger some big little sis, he's only going to move short instead of medium, and if he ever does a spender, he's going to also be moving short. So that means that X23 is going to have a really hard time doing anything next round. My opponent does have, no matter the cost, to get one of his range 3 spender out, but he can only use it with either Sabretooth or X23, not both. And as I know that they both won't have the power to do it next round, naturally, it opens me up some nice defensive options, right? Because I don't need to fear both. Here I'm also in the interesting situation where I could try to deal some damage, maybe on LordAbadeer to get some fire starter going or something, but honestly, nothing feels great. Attacking Sabretooth means only giving him power. So I feel like I should probably just back out to a safer distance, as I do have a pretty good range advantage on my opponent. So I can play the range game. Right, I will position within LordAbadeer's range, so that if I want to spread Firestarter next round, well, Incinerate with Firestarter, I've got the option. Use the leadership, give back a power to Pyro from Crystal, so that way he's ready for a Firewall again next round. Alright, so here my opponent goes with Juggernaut, picks up the hammer, and then I know he's not gonna hit anyone, but he's gonna be, scooching forward. Where he goes, I'm expecting him to go on this side of the board. More like this side, right? Where to land is a bit trickier. Ideally, not too close would be my expectation, as Juggernaut is so mobile that next round he can reach pretty deep without being super forward, but my opponent chooses to go really deep, which is something that you always have to be careful, because now, a bit like, right, I was sloppy with this positioning, now I find that this positioning is also a little bit on the sloppy side, because now he's fairly within range of getting shot by Black Bolt, which means some free damage for me on Juggernaut round 1, potentially. Alright, I also look for Rhino. Rhino's gonna be outside, but see, Black Bolt is easily in range, which means that I can move, grab the hammer, and then shoot Juggernaut. So 6 dice with Pierce and a reroll. I'm on average doing like around 2 damage, I guess. Not entirely sure of the math. I should have probably checked them out on Cerebro before this, but I didn't. So, I do know that 6 dice without reroll and Pierce like 1 point something, so probably 2 point something. I do get an insane roll. He does get a decent block, right, with 2 out of 3, but I've got 6 out of 6 with Pierce, which means that he's gonna take a massive 4 damage, right? Yes. I can still do math. Sometimes. Alright, so now I'm feeling in a great position as I've got a lot of power on the board. My models are in a sweet position. I know that Logan isn't going to be super active this round. At best, he's scoring a victory point. With Black Bolt, I should have positioned a bit differently to be able to be within 3 of Rhino. That would have been better because giving a bar to Rhino here would be pretty sweet. But it's honestly not the end of the world, as I do want to keep some power on Black Bolt for next round. Alright, so here we goes with Logan with a pretty defensive positioning on this secure. So he's going to be super safe, but at the same time, it means that he's not going to be super active early on. Right, so Rhino, as I expected, not in range for Juggernaut. But I can get in between all of my models and get a nice defensive position for next round, right? As now I have Sacrifice onto Rhino available for a lot of people. Now we're just going to look at the end of round positioning for a second, right? So here, for the extracts, we've got 1 over here, 1 over here, 1 over here, and 1 over here. Which means that basically all of the important stuff is mostly here, with, you know, Beast a little bit outside, but not too far out. Logan, in this situation, is not a super active piece. What I mean by that is, sure, he's scoring 1 victory point, but that is 4 threat for 1 victory point, right? If you think of it this way, it doesn't feel great, especially that next round, he's got no dangerous play or super dangerous plays available, right? The best Logan can hope to do is probably walk somewhere around here and then attack Beast. That's not a great activation on round 2. And that's the best he can hope for right now. While on my side, I'm sure I've got Beast. That's not going to be as impactful at first glance. But he's got a hammer. So with a hammer, I can easily go to this objective, score 2 points, and be happy. Right? 2 points for 3 threat, great deal. Also, all of my other models over here, right, if we look, right, all of my opponent's models are also like either already in danger, but active, partially threatened, like mostly Honey Badger, or like, you know, kind of like safe in the case of Sabretooth and X-23. Sorry for the point drawings, I'm not the best at drawing, but that also means that those models, to do anything, are going to be currently mostly forced to do a walk, right, somewhere around here, and then attack. That means that functionally next round, I'm looking at a maximum from my opponent of 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 attacks. Well, I could, without moving, I've already got Black Bolt can do 2, Rhino could do 2, Crystal can do like 1 billion, Pyro could do 2, right? And my opponent is still in a position where he kind of like needs to move towards me, because otherwise I'm just going to shoot him down. So I'm exerting a lot of pressure while being overall pretty safe. So at this current moment, I am behind on victory points because of Logan, right? I'm going to score only 3 and my opponent will score 4. But I often say it's okay to fall behind on victory points early on. You know, maybe not 7-1, but 4-3 is a great trade for a much stronger board position. And that's something that's always important to note. I know that Pat Dunford has also mentioned the same thing a few times, and it's really true. Like, it's okay to not score every point on the board, even if you could, if it means that you're in a better position for the next round. So here my opponent has priority, right? And he's got some tough decisions. Most of his pieces are not in a great position to do much, so what do you do in those instances, right? It's not obvious. I don't think there's a clear-cut answer. You can go for the big play, right? He's got one model that's in danger and could do a high impact play, and that's Juggernaut. That's the model he chooses to go with. That's a reasonable decision, as it is potentially your model that's going to do the most. At the same time, you have to be careful. Here, here there's a little something that happens, so might as well raise awareness about it. When you declare an advance with a model and start moving, if you land somewhere that you cannot land like this, right? Like the base is not fully on the tractor, so my opponent is not like in a legal position, if you want. What you're supposed to do is simply move somewhere else on the movement stick that is a legal landing spot for your model. You're not supposed to then go, oh, I'm gonna move somewhere else, because if you're doing that, it's pretty much cheating. It's not, because you've kind of used a proxy base to confirm something. So please be careful with this, right? What my opponent's trying to do right now is not legal. So as he's doing it, I'm gonna be talking to him and explaining that, because I do like my games to be clean, right? And that's the kind of stuff that I think everyone should strive to get better at. It is a lot more annoying on TTS, and I've had the issue happen to myself and to other players in the past, especially on TTS. Normally in person you can a bit easier figure it out, but still, in person I find different pieces to know if your model's gonna land on or not can be tricky. So try to bear that in mind when you play. So see here I'm explaining the whole situation. He's gonna agree with me to play the clean way, and it does mean that he kind of like finishes his movement base to base with the tractor. He's still gonna gain his power because he's Juggernaut, and then he's gonna get to nothing stops getting rid of the tractor and still get pretty much where you wanted to be initially. So in that case, I'm kind of happy, because if it's to happen to someone that's not aware of the rule, at least it's nice to have it happen with a model that doesn't get punished for it too much. Right, and he goes into Black Bolt. I'm going to boost my defense dice right here. As with 6 dice against 9, I should take some damage, but the odds of him one-shotting me aren't great. And after that, Juggernaut's gonna be done. I double hook infinite, so I'm super fine. So now his Juggernaut is looking real sad because of the error with the movement, right? He cannot run away as much as he would have been able to otherwise. So he's kind of forced to go deeper. Had it been against a team that packs less of a punch, maybe it wouldn't. It's not always an issue, right? Juggernaut can be a monster defensively with his nice punch. See here, I'm also showing how to use the throw push feature to make sure that you stay in the little indent of the movement tool, because when you move, you can finish on the edges, but for a throw or push, you have to finish perfectly centered. So Juggernaut heals himself with the console. Now, here, what's going through my mind is, okay, my opponent has used his most active piece. Tried to deal damage, got a bit unlucky, didn't deal any. Now, if we're looking at what's left for my opponent to activate, right, he's got all of those guys that are over here. All of those guys can barely threaten models, mostly by moving and then attacking. And the one that's the most exposed is Crystal, right? If I move Crystal out of the way, he's gonna have really awkward options because it's mostly gonna be Rhino, maybe Pyro with some of the models, but you know, it's not gonna be too crazy. So I figured, hey, Crystal could move, take a power from someone with the leadership, and get 2 attacks into Juggernaut, starting with a Incinerate Beam. If I'm lucky, I get the Wild, set up Incinerate, and then another energy attack, get some damage into Juggernaut, right? Because now my goal is to daze Juggernaut. As he's got an extract, he's super exposed. So, I end up rolling great with Crystal, having 4 out of 4. That's always amazing when it happens. And the Incinerate, Juggernaut feels like blocking nothing. So I get a lot of damage in. Elemental Onslaught for the other energy attack, which means that if I'm lucky, I daze him right away. And if I don't, he's still gonna get daze. It's almost guaranteed. One thing in MCP, right? Luck has an impact, but see here, it just makes my life easier, right? I get lucky, I daze Juggernaut super fast, so it's gonna make the rest of my round go even better. But it's mostly my strong positioning that lets me leverage that luck into brutal plays, right? Had I been positioned worse, my opponent would have way more counterplay. But because I've been really cautious and I've set up my models pretty defensively and I've used Firewall to create even more distance, my opponent doesn't have that many great options, right? Everything is stuck moving and attacking. So in this case, I'm feeling pretty good about my board state. This is now feeling like it's mostly my game to lose, due to the strength of my positioning. Of course, dice can be dice, but my opponent's gonna need some big luck to get in a better position. Because right now my situation is really strong. Because all of my pieces are still in a pretty good spot, while is are in a more awkward situation. And that's what you always want to try to think about in the rounds 1 and 2. How to stay close on victory points and how to position better. One thing to know, I had a lot of fun talking with LordAbadeer during and after our game. The guy is amazing. Super fun. But he had never played against Pyro. And that slow in route really threw a curveball on him that he wasn't expecting to be that much of an issue, right? Even if you know in practice that it's going to come out, if you've never played against it, it can be pretty rough. And we've got Sabertooth coming in with the no matter the cost for a spender into Black Bolt. Black Bolt is holding the dossier, so this attack is extremely dangerous. And that's where Sacrifice will come in. And who's the best target for Sacrifice? Rhino. And between the Tough-Eyed and Ornery, I'm expecting to take some damage. Hopefully not enough to get dazed. But assuming average rolls, I'm going to take some damage and then gain a buttload of power. Alright, so in this case, it turns out perfect. I block 2, he's got 3 with Pierce, so even if I go down to 1 block, the Rhino-Eyed means I only take 1 damage. And with Ornery, I gain an extra power. Now here I apologize, I had completely forgotten that Sabretooth had a bleed on his bender, and my opponent also forgot, so it did not get applied on Rhino. I remember most stuff, but I personally don't use the spender that often. So I honestly just completely forgotten. I don't think it's going to be that much of a game changer. But I'm sorry for forgetting about that, LordAbadeer. I normally try to keep the game state as perfect as possible. I'm not getting too aggressive here with Rhino considering Sabretooth's positioning right, as I don't want to move backwards. Alright, so now... sorry. Now... I've got to consider... what do I do with Black Bolt? Because Black Bolt now has Sabretooth in his face. Sabretooth is the person with the dose here. I've used Sacrifice to save myself from this. But if Sabretooth gets into Black Bolt for another round, I don't think Black Bolt survives it, honestly. So, I could daze Sabretooth and try to go for a kind of trade where I try to KO him after he dazes Black Bolt. But that doesn't sound great either. But Sabretooth is still at 0 power. So if I don't attack him, he's gonna have no power next round again. And that seems like the safer play. So what do we do to still make something right? Had I not dazed Juggernaut, I would be looking at shooting Juggernaut and moving a bit away. I have dazed Juggernaut, so I would like to build up some power with Black Bolt. So I figured, might as well move towards the center, right, creating some distance from Sabretooth. As with 2 attacks, I expect Sabretooth to daze me on 1 activation. With only 1 attack, I expect to survive, honestly. I mean, he's still got probably decent chances of dazing me, but they're probably not that crazy. Let's throw a little shot into LordAbadeer. The awkward part with this is it does gonna give X23 a move. But the way I see it, even if I give her a move, it's a short move. She's still going to be stuck needing another move action to do almost anything. Because she's just so far from everyone. So here we're gonna see, he's gonna move forward with X23. But that slow is really limiting her impact. It's still not in range of anyone. Now with Black Bolt, I consider ending off a power with the leadership, but I figured, you know what? If he chooses to attack, say, with X23 into Black Bolt, I want to be able to spend some power for some defense and having some leftover power so that I'm guaranteed to get another one next round, right? Without having to think about it too much. So here my opponent now has some plays with X23 because of what I've done. But I figured, you know what, that's a trade-off I'm willing to do because if he goes into Rhino, I'm just happy, right? He's probably not dazing him, and I get a bunch of power. If he goes into Pyro, maybe he dazes him, but then I have Prio next round, which is also pretty interesting because it lets me probably protect someone and do some nasty stuff. And if he goes into Black Bolt, well, it's annoying, but I expect Black Bolt to survive, and that gives me some options. So he chooses to go into Pyro, which makes sense. He's obnoxious. If he doesn't daze him, I've got some nasty stuff planned with Pyro. That's a very poor roll from my opponent. That's always unfortunate. I do block none, so everything gets through, so it's probably not that far from the average, right, with 2 damage. The average is probably 2 point something if you look it up on Cerebro. Alright, so now I've got some interesting options, right? And I know I'm going to be playing second next round. And now X23 has activated and is nicely within 1 of Rhino, which is pretty sweet for me, as this means it's going to be an easy robbery. I'm looking at my movement options with Beast and Pyro, just to see a bit where I could potentially go in the future, right? But I'm pretty sure I'm going to go with Rhino. As with Rhino, I can strike Honey Badger, right? Taser. I have no consequences from this as I'm playing second. I'm just removing an activation from my opponent. I get a robbery into X23 before doing that. It's going to be a nasty round. And a nasty Rhino activation, right? So you can see, thinking about all of this as I explain it, this is what's going through my mind. So making a little bit, right, on TTS, I find it's important to go at different distances to properly see stuff. So we're going to throw X23, make her drop the hammer, which we're going to drop near Rhino, and throw X23 away and outside of tree of Honey Badger. I did not measure the tree, but I'm fairly confident I did it right. But then again, this is a case of me being sloppy. I should not be. Don't be like me. Be better. Pre-measure your stuff. So 6 dice score into Honey Badger with 2 defense dices. That's likely to Dazer. It does. Right, yes. I gain 2 power. I get to place, which is nice. I end up figuring out, I'm not sure it matters much where I go. I end up choosing to place here. He wants to move, and that's where I tell him that he has to be within 3. He thought he was. I was fairly confident he wasn't, but now that we actually measure it, my evaluation was good, but had I been wrong, that could have cost me the game. Well, maybe not the game, but maybe, right? So don't do like me and take the time to pre-measure your stuff. So Rhino is going to move on to the objective and heal himself. Pretty easy activation. Now I've got all 4 hammers. And it's looking pretty good. Not gonna lie, I like my position over here. See, Logan can't even reach Beast with the way he angled right. He was trying to go after Black Bolt. Had he pre-measured properly, would have seen it, didn't reach, and could have tried to make a play into Beast. He didn't, and got a little bit bitten in the butt for it. See, so that's why you should always pre-measure, because sometimes you're gonna be right. Like, right, I didn't pre-measure stuff with the Rhino throw, and it worked, but it could have backfired. Here Logan ends up positioning for next round into a pretty dangerous spot, though. I think it's a nice position for Logan. With Beast, though, now means that I have a easy rotation available. I do look at my options. Logan is not within 3. Alright, so I just got, like, I don't think hitting Logan would have been the right call, to be honest, but you know, sometimes you just want to look at what you could do. I go for the safe simple play, double move, go onto the Extremist console. Here I get the classic placing within one that doesn't want to be within one, so it annoys me and I just reposition a bit. But that's why it's important to always declare intent when making moves, even on TTS. So if there's some awkwardness, you can always just say, well, I said I was within one, so even if you end up not within one for some reason, you're fine. Your power gets to do another firewall, this time on Sabertooth, which is a pretty which is going to be pretty rough for my opponent to recover from, because now he's got two models that are slowed and rooted, and they're both in really awkward positions compared to where everyone else is, right? Like this round went about as perfect as I could have hoped, right? My opponent didn't get lucky with his attack rolls. I got lucky with mine, so I managed to pull out a lot of value. Maybe I should have not done the attack into LordAbadeer with Black Bolt, as that was a small risk, but I felt like the advantages were good enough and the risks weren't all that high. So, alright, I try to move towards the top objective. I know I won't reach it, but I'm fairly confident that it puts me in a good position for next round, right? Because my goal is, now if we look at where the hammers are, right, we've got one here, one here, one here, one here. The one on Beast is super safe. I'm probably going to be keeping it easily next round. Rhino is pretty safe for now. X23 can like mess him up a bit, but he's full health, so he should be fine. I am not within one of LordAbadeer, so no ankle biter. So the two models my opponent can look at really doing work into are Crystal, right? And Black Bolt. And this way too, I guess. That's the extracts that are more in danger if you want. But it's not like, so I'm expecting that depending on how my opponent rolls, I might lose Black Bolt. If I do, then I run away with Crystal, right? If he goes after Crystal, I run away with Black Bolt. I'm assuming whichever he goes for gets dazed. If I'm extremely unlucky, dazes both in one activation, and then we're in trouble a bit. Not crazy trouble, but we're in a more awkward spot. It would give me some options to just score a safe 4-point and then probably win the next round with my two leftover hammers. Alright, so it goes with Logan into Black Bolt. That's reasonable, right? Logan's pretty dangerous. I would have maybe started with Sabertooth into Black Bolt, but it would have been only one attack, so it probably makes sense to just go with the guy that could potentially double tap. I do get a great block, it doesn't get a pierce. So Black Bolt only takes 2. Which means that now I'm still at 3 health on Black Bolt. He might daze me with another attack, he might not. He's also eyeing Pyro. I know while we're playing, he's thinking that he's trying to see if he can get a beam into both, which he probably can, right? By angling to the side a bit, but probably not. It's hard to say. So here, he goes a bit fast, right? I was talking about being sloppy. But he does realize, like, as he was about to place, he just mentioned, so I just want to be outside of 3 of everyone, so in theory, you'd need to not move the model before placing the range 3. But had he placed it first, he would have seen that would have not worked, so I let him finish positioning properly here. And then he chooses to go into Pyro. Pyro doesn't hold an extract, so it's annoying because I would have liked to use him for some firewalls or maybe some pyrotechnics this round, depending on how stuff goes, but I'm not getting one of my extract holder days, so overall I call it a win for me. And Logan just goes crazy on this shot. Had he went into Crystal or Black Bolt, he would have like super dazed them, probably. The cool thing about that though is it does mean that Logan gets to place onto the objective. So it does give my opponent some scenario play, but it's far from being the most problematic scenario play, I figure. Alright, so here, my opponent really wants the dossier, right? And I don't want him to get it. So I feel like, even though I would like to run away with Crystal, I feel like I have to run away with Black Bolt first, as he's kind of like in more danger, and if he dazes, it can get pretty bad pretty fast. Chris also being on a objective means that as long as if she doesn't get dazed, I get to potentially heal her, run away, heal myself again on another console. So I'm considering where to go with Black Bolt. It's close. I should probably go for the objective that Logan is on. But I feel like actually going to the right side is probably better, for the simple fact that this way I get to heal myself, and then Beast could heal Black Bolt and then double move and go to where Logan is, right? So if I do something like that, I still get to contest the back point with someone, but I'm also leaving someone onto the right secure, and every piece has been active this round if you want, right? Everyone's done something relevant. Alright, so here you see he's looking for ankle biter. I'm not in range, which means that going after Rhino is really not exciting. Crystal is really the target. Going with Sabretooth first is the right decision, as Juggernaut can chase her down no matter where she runs to, I feel like. So it goes into Crystal. Grows a really good attack roll, right, from my opponent with 5 in Pierce. I do roll 2 blocks and I have my reroll, so maybe 3. I don't get 3, but 2 is good enough so that even with Pierce, I'm gonna be surviving on 1. I do get a bleed from this, which is obnoxious. On the builder, I knew about it. So here comes the bleed. And then my opponent only has 5 power on Sabertooth, so he can only do a Troll or a Primal Pounce. Both come out the same in the end, because if he throws me, no matter what, I'm gonna use Brace, right? Because I have Brace up. If he throws me, I get to reach the right side of the right console, the console on the right, in a single move action, which is nice for me. And it means that I can check off the bleed and heal myself for 1. If he Primal Pounces, I instead heal myself with the console that I'm sitting on, right? Which would have been this one. And then I double move to the one that on the right side and heal myself for 1. I will still be bleeding, but with the same amount of damage taken. So it's really similar in terms of output. The Primal Bounce is a bit better because I keep the condition. But honestly, at that point in time in the game, I don't think it matters much because I'm likely winning this round. And my opponent mostly needs Juggernaut to get the job done. Or for X23 to go completely crazy and daze Rhino. So here, you're gonna see me get a bit punished for being sloppy with Rhino. I placed myself within 3 of X23, barely. I thought I placed myself out, right? But when I say I'm sometimes sloppy, this was one of those instances. To be fair, that's what happens sometimes, right? You feel a bit overconfident and then you can get sloppy and then dices can punish you. In this case, they won't. Or not too heavily, right? 2 successes. I block 0, but I only take 1, get an extra power. Life is great for Rhino. He does get his free advance, which is going to be short because of the slow. Still going to be good enough for him to get onto the objective so that he can strike me again. But the Rhino still has 6 life left. That's a lot. He's extremely unlikely to daze me at that point. He can still deal some damage. He's gonna go for the builder. Deal some amount of damage. Don't remember how much. Yeah, a fair bit. 3 more. Which is nice for him. Now Rhino's taking a fair bit of damage and a bleed because that was a builder. Not that I care too much at this point in time. Now I've got basically he's got Juggernaut and LordAbadeer left. I feel like I should go with Rhino just because Rhino, while it is unlikely, LordAbadeer could daze him, and then I'm in a much more awkward spot. My plan right now is to send both Rhino and Beast onto his back point, so that my 2 LT models will beat out his 1 to let me score that objective. And unless Juggernaut dazes someone, I will win the game, scoring 4 hammers and 2 consoles. I do happen to get some nice damage into Logan, so that's always a plus. Might as well take it. I mean, if I daze him, it could be nice for the next round if he manages to survive this one. So, Rhino goes in, does some damage. I'm going to throw the size 3 truck into him, because why not? Logan has 3 life left, which is super awkward for exceptional healing options. Here he blocks 2, maybe he blocks 3 for the truck. No, he blocks 2, takes 2. Which would have been also awkward for exceptional, right? Exceptional healing for just 1 doesn't feel great, but now he only has 1 life left, so dazing him is really likely. He's gonna add some extra defense dices. Like I said, though, all of this is mostly as a safety measure. It's probably not gonna be needed for me to win the game, but when you've got opportunities that can help you get into an even better position, you can always take them. The game isn't over until it's totally over, right? Speaking of which, the game is going to come down to Juggernaut, right? Because right now I'm scoring 6 points. And my opponent chooses to go with LordAbadeer first. Here he probably should have went with Juggernaut first, simply because that would deny me 1 health from Beast activating and using the console on someone. Which is what I'm going to be doing here, right? I'm going to heal Crystal, so now it's closer, right? Crystal might survive. If he goes after CR, I'm going to place the angle. I don't think I can get... right? And I don't think my base fits in that spot. But I'm making sure that if it doesn't, which it doesn't, right? Maybe I could have angled it better. But I can still fill a niche on the objective and heal Rhino for 1. So even if my ideal plan didn't work out, I was still in a okay position. So as to not get completely screwed by terrain. So your Juggernaut's gonna move. Sometimes when you're trying to place like this, it's easier to remove the place limit on the tool. If you're trying to angle like more in the center, it can be obnoxious. As we can see here, because he wants to be as close to the terrain as possible. And TTS is making it funky. And then nothing stops the Juggernaut to get towards Crystal and Black Bolt. Angles the tool, does a throw push, boom boom. Doesn't get into range with anyone, which is nice about that is now he's probably going to have enough power to do his throw, but you never know. And it's slide, but not necessarily everything. Alright, and here he chooses to go after Black Bolt. I think I personally would have went after Crystal because she's just easier to daze overall. But I can understand that. We talked about it a little bit. He felt like if he didn't daze Black Bolt, he was going to be in trouble anyways next round. While dazing Crystal would have been still easy to do next round. It does mean I have 6 defense dice instead of 3. He gets a great roll, but I also have a great defense roll if I remember correctly. Yes. Blocking 3, 4. And then if I remember, yes, 5 with the reroll. So 5 on 5, I take no damage. This now means he doesn't get enough power for the throw. the push into Black Bolt is also not that great, so he can't push me off of the objective easily, but either way, because he doesn't have the power for the throw, I'm going to be controlling that secure with my LT character and scoring 6 points to my opponent's 2. Ending the game 16-6. So yeah, LordAbadeer was super fun to play with, great guy. Looking forward to playing with him again. Like I've mentioned, he had never played against Spyro, and those slows and roots really messed him up, right? We can see here as we look at the end of the game. Sabertooth and X23 have had pretty miserable games overall, and that was because of the root and slow, which let me right on the round 2. I went from having all of my models over here roughly to scattering. Right, Beast went over there, Crystal went backwards, Beast went over there, Pyro went over here, and Rhino went over there, right? So I scattered everyone everywhere except here. Why? Because him, for his aggression, he had to move all of his models in. You know, X-Wing Truth was over here, Sabertooth was over there. So it kept creating space because I had the extract advantage and a massive mobility advantage because of the slows from Pyro. This is a playstyle that isn't possible every game, but in this game, it was extremely strong. One other thing, I know I always use the streamer mod when I play. I know not everyone does. I find that it's extremely useful to help remember tactic cards, who has activated, power, etc. It's just a great quick reminder of a bunch of stuff, and I know that in this case, I think I remember my opponent wasn't using it, and if he was too zoomed in at some point and he forgot something because of that. I don't remember all the details, but I think it was a memory token that he could have used, and just because of yeah, I have that weird thing too where my score token appears as like a question mark for me, but my opponents see it normally, so that's kind of weird. But yeah, here we're talking a bit. I'm gonna end this here. So yeah, let me know if you find that kind of content interesting, because I think it could be a sweet way of putting out my content for games, right, with some analysis. So let me know how you think about this is. If y'all like it, I'm gonna keep doing. I plan on keep doing it. I'm gonna keep working on making it better. But that's kind of like the plan for my post game reviews. Stay tuned for the week 2 game coming up soon. It's a wildly different style of game, so it's gonna be pretty fun to showcase. Alright, thanks everyone.